Look, Rainworld, I'm sorry. I love you. You know I love you. But there is so much movement tech in this game, and the overwhelming majority of it is just completely irrelevant. There is a Google Doc that details all of the movement tech in this game, and it is 87 pages long. 87 pages! The movement system in this game is great, and it's really complicated, but it misses this one key element. You just don't need most of it. Look, I can explain, alright? In that video, I outlined 5 key features that make a good movement system in a video game. Rainworld has a very deep movement system that is extremely skill expressive. It ticks a lot of the boxes for making a perfect movement system. But I argue that it doesn't tick this one box right here. It needs to be important. Utilizing the movement system should be vital to your ability to succeed in the game. And I think that Rainworld fails at this. I don't think Rainworld's movement system is bad, not by any means. Just that it falls short of that perfection that the other movement systems mentioned in the video have. Not that it's not fun, or skill expressive, or that it lacks depth, just that it feels redundant sometimes. And as you can imagine, not everyone agreed with this. So I actually wanted to explain why I think this. Why I think it's a problem for the movement system, and most importantly, the one change that I think you could make to fix the problem entirely. Rainworld's movement system has an insane amount of depth. Its movement is absolutely crazy. There's a huge Google Doc written up by the game's community detailing all of the movement tech in the game, and it's 87 pages long. 87 pages of guides and examples of how to do every single movement tech discovered in the game. From simple stuff like slides and pole hops to the absurdly complicated stuff, like an extended instant hop. By throwing an object backwards while sliding and putting in a frame-perfect jump input, you can instantly cross vast distances. Or turn, stored, extended slide flip bounces. Jesus. They, look like this. I'm not even going to pretend to know how they do this, but they do. There's even wiggle flight, which is literally exactly what it sounds like. But the inputs are so precise that chances are you're not going to be able to do it unless you're a tool-assisted speedrun robot. The list of these things feels completely endless, ranging from extremely easy to literally not humanly possible. And all of that is great for so many reasons. It gives the extremely dedicated players tons of things to practice and learn about. Going back to the lab to find new stuff has always been a great source of replay value for many games out there. But a lot of this tech rarely, if ever, leaves the lab. The overwhelming majority of the movement tech in this gargantuan movement document is impractical for use in any actual in-game scenario. Or it's so technically precise that doing it in the rare situation that it is useful is going to take you 10,000 hours of practice. This level of complexity is great, but learning the most complex tech out there isn't rewarded very much in-game. Your only reward outside of being cool in the Rainworld Discord server is a higher level of general consistency at the game's movement overall, because you're just putting in lots of practice hours into the movement in general. The actual tech itself is extremely niche. Like, take a look at the world record speedrun of the game. There's a full video linked in the description. The most complex trick used here is an extended slide, where you slide across the floor and throw a rock behind you to make you go much further and much faster. It's cool, sure, and it's not the easiest to pull off without some practice either, but that's as complex as it gets. And that is a far cry from the 87 pages worth of cool stuff promised by this movement document, a lot of which is significantly harder than an extended slide. And if a world record speedrun isn't using the full extent of the movement system that's on offer, then the rest of the player base has no hope in hell of using 90% of the tech that is possible in the game. Now, I'm not trying to diminish the level of skill displayed in this speedrun. This speedrun is absolutely mental. The level of consistency with the movement on display is crazy. There's no doubt that this game, its movement, and its speedruns are all extremely skill expressive, but the list of tech is endless, and most of it's just not on show. Now you might be wondering, why does that matter? Like, so what if there's a ton of cool niche stuff that never gets used? Surely the stuff that does get used being cool is all that matters, right? Well, the answer to that is yes. The movement system, having a ton of unutilized potential, doesn't detract from what is actually used in speedruns, and what is actually used in casual play. The stuff that is used is still incredibly satisfying and rewarding, just like any other good movement system. The issue is that this unutilized potential takes a movement system that would otherwise be perfect, and makes it slightly less than perfect, at least in my opinion. Let's compare it to other games that I think do have perfect movement systems. Celeste's movement system has a ton of highly precise tricks that actually see usage throughout speedruns. Demo dashing springs to mind, where you can dash through tiny gaps in spike walls that you aren't meant to be able to fit through, with just some highly precise inputs, or gain infinite speed chaining good dash movement together. There's complex tech, but it actually sees play in runs. Or TF2 jumping. It has some insanely precise and complex techniques that are completely useless in normal play. But because of its community-developed nature, any mechanic can see use within a speedrun so long as someone wants to make a map for it. You might think these two comparisons are unfair or unusual, but Rainworld's movement system possesses basically all of the same movement tech quirks that these games have. A movement system that is simple on the surface but takes a long time to master. A movement system that was put in the game by the devs on purpose, but lots of complex mechanics emerged that the developers never necessarily intended to put into the game, with highly precise tech that only the best of the best can pull off, and community-created levels that push the game's difficulty to its absolute limit. In these two games, the tech is utilised to a much more significant degree, but in Rainworld, it struggles to see use. Now, the comparison is slightly unfair, because there is a reason that this is the case. It's because these two games were designed with speedrunning and movement exclusively in mind. Jump maps are made for jumping. Celeste was built from the ground up as a speedrunning platformer. Whereas Rainworld's great and has a cool movement system, but the game itself is much more geared towards exploration, survival, and combat. The games just weren't designed with the same gameplay loop in mind. If Rainworld had no enemies and was just a 2D platformer, I'm sure the movement tech would be way more utilised, but that's not what they made the game for. But despite that flaw, the comparison still seems good enough to put across my point. The game's lack of focus on speed and movement is the cause of the problem, but the problem still exists. Rainworld's movement system is nearly perfect, but lacks that one little spark, that necessity. If the complex movement tech was more important, Rainworld would take that next big step up to where the big boys live up here in perfect movement land. But unfortunately, I don't think this is where the problem ends, because I fear that this problem is only going to get worse with the release of Rainworld Downpour. There's multiple new playable characters that have been revealed that will have some sort of ability to enhance their movement. The Rivulet is literally just faster than the other Slugcats. Straight up faster. The Rivulet runs faster, jumps higher, every single movement tech that's possible as the Survivor will also be possible as the Rivulet. But when the Rivulet does it, they'll jump higher, they'll go further, and they'll generally just do it better. Now this can go one of two ways. Option 1 is that the Rivulet becomes the god character. And if you can do movement tech as normal Slugcat, then you will be able to basically take flight as the Rivulet. Option 1 is that the movement tech on Rivulet becomes more important because of how crazy its usefulness would potentially become. But option 2 is the one that I'm afraid of. Option 2 is that the usefulness of the movement tech decreases on the Rivulet, because they already move extremely fast with minimal skill and effort required. So the movement becomes redundant for everything other than super crazy speedrun skips. The large bulk of tech in this game already being extremely niche means that the Rivulet has the potential to make that tech even less useful than it already is, which for the fastest character in the game, you would hope isn't the case. The other movement character revealed is called the Saint. The Saint has a grappling hook. The Saint's tongue is a grappling hook. Why would you ever need to do crazy fast weird slide boosts if you can just swing around from the ceiling and go just as fast? Now the Saint's grappling hook is a movement system all of its own, and it's one that has the potential to be really awesome, but all of the other movement stuff gets completely nullified while playing as this character. The movement system will still be useful if you want to play all the other characters, but for these characters, it looks like the movement tech might just become even more redundant than it already is. And chances are, one of these two characters will be the any percent speedrun character, where every single any percent run uses one of the two. So the lack of usefulness of the movement system truly is a worry for speedruns. Now, at the start, I promised a solution to this. Something that you could change to make this problem a lot smaller. And it's quite simple, really. It's all about level design. The level design in Rainworld is already fantastic, both for exploration and movement. It does a great job at incentivizing the movement system to be utilized. The problem is that it only incentivizes the use of the stuff that devs actually put in the game on purpose, because a lot of this stuff that I'm talking about is very clearly not developer intended. In fact, someone in the Rainworld Discord showed one of the devs a clip of some advanced movement tech, and the dev literally thought that the clip had low gravity turned on because of how insane insane it looks. To be honest though, it's kind of hard to blame them, because that is what it looks like. It looks like he flies. But now that the devs know that their game has been busted wide open by their community, the devs should factor that into their level design. Make the levels in such a way that facilitates the use of the advanced tech that the game has to offer. Don't make it a necessity, because that will alienate the overwhelming majority of your audience, because most players aren't good enough to execute this movement. But just make it so that it's useful. Make some sort of shortcut that gets you to an area much faster, or have a scavenger den full of weapons gated off behind some cool trick jump or something. Ask your community, see what they say, and make levels that they can abuse with their knowledge of the movement system. Make it traversable without that knowledge, but destroyable with it. Because that way, the best players will have constant incentives to push the game's movement system to its fullest potential. Apparently Downpour will have a bunch of new regions, and not designing them with the movement system in mind would be a missed opportunity. Now, Rainworld is a near flawless game in my opinion, and as harsh as it can be to compare a game with so many strengths to a game that is purely based around speedrunning and movement, Rainworld's movement system still does an incredible job at keeping up, even if it does fall slightly short of perfection in the end. Thanks for watching.